time. Juan hits it in the air to right. Back at the wall. Grand slam! Duval! 4-0 Atlanta.
I'm sorry to bring back some bad memories of the Astros in last year's postseason, but that's from the last time that we saw Framber Valdez on the mound for the Houston Astros in the postseason, Game 5 of last year's World Series against the Atlanta Braves. Now, the Astros did rally to win that game before ultimately losing in 6, but it's been a rough go of late for Framber Valdez in the postseason. He's had a great regular season, but should any of us be sold that his postseason issues are in the rearview mirror? That is my question to open up today's show, the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. You can weigh in yourself, 713-780-3776, 713-780-ESPN. If you have more faith in Framber Valdez this year's postseason, you can also tweet me at Gallant Says or join us on the Twitch chat, twitch.tv/ESPN975. Am I supposed to believe that a great regular season erases what we saw from him in last year's postseason, where he stunk? It wasn't just the grand slam in the first inning of Game 5. It was the third pitch of the World Series to piggyback off of a fantastic ALCS performance against the Boston Red Sox, where, once again, he was taken yard.
Here's one slammed into left field. How about that start to the World Series? Soler will take the trip, and he puts Atlanta up 1-0 with a first swing of the Fall Classic.
Bad way to start the World Series, and we'll see if the Atlanta Braves are actually able to get further in the postseason. Their series with Philadelphia tied at 1 game apiece. Also, the Dodgers and Padres tied at 1 game apiece. I want the Dodgers in the World Series, mainly because I want to rub it in their faces. But back to Framber Valdez. He had a great regular season, and he deserves a lot of credit for it. I'm just of the belief that the regular season doesn't matter that much. And I mean, shoot, what did we just see on Tuesday where Justin Verlander's having an incredible regular season? His best, arguably, of his career. And then you see some of the same postseason issues that he has had in the past rear their ugly heads against the Seattle Mariners. We saw him in 2019 for a lot of the postseason with Justin Verlander. He did not look particularly good last time around. And there we go. Game 1, the Mariners got to him early. Framber Valdez has had a great regular season. But something that I've learned over the last couple of days from pieces written about Framber Valdez, both by Brian McTaggart and by The Athletic, is that Framber has had a lot of work with essentially a mental coach, a doctor, over the course of this offseason. There's a passage from the piece that McTaggart wrote. Maybe you've seen Framber sitting in the dugout this season with his eyes closed as if he were transporting himself to another world. Perhaps you've noticed him smiling as he walks around the mound, getting ready to face another overmatched hitter. These aren't accidental mannerisms. They are intentional exercises the all-star left-hander has trained himself to do to make sure he's in the right frame of mind on the mound. For Valdez, his mental cues while he's pitching are as important to his success as his sinker and his amazing curveball. So Dr. Andy Nunez is the guy that he speaks to. Remember, he had that amazing 25 consecutive quality start streak, which ended against Baltimore on September 24th. He gave up 7 runs in 5 1/3 innings. So he called afterwards, and Nunez told him that he wasn't breathing, essentially, during the game. Nunez, I guess, watched the film and said, when you have a contraction in the muscle like you told me, I see you, and you aren't breathing out there. So he's a bit of a head case. What pitcher isn't? Who in life isn't? In their own way, shape, or form. But would we not all agree that postseason baseball is different than regular season baseball? That it's a moment that can easily, if you give up 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, things can perhaps start to go haywire in your mind. How do you refocus when you're on the hill? Because that's been the big problem for Framber Valdez. And we saw it in last year's World Series. It was the first inning, right away, third pitch of the game of Game 1. Home run, grand slam, first inning of Game 5. It's a year in the past, but it was a postseason where he struggled. And I'm not convinced that Framber Valdez has put that in the rearview mirror. But I want to know what you guys think. 713-780-3776, ESPN. Do you have faith in Framber Valdez this time around? Jeff leads off on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. Jeff, what's up?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I a little bit more concerned, and you touched on it with when the World Tour ended of the Framber Valdez quality starts. Since that point, at the end of the season, he struggled. So not only the playoff struggles, but he really didn't finish his last couple of starts very strong either. So that's more of a concern to me than necessarily last year's playoff. Still have faith in him and certainly pulling for him, but a little concerned with his last couple of starts. Thank you.
Appreciate the phone call, Jeff. I think it's fair to be concerned with the last couple of starts. And look, I'm rooting for the guy. I'm not rooting against anybody. I'm just saying that I'm not convinced by a regular season. And I don't think any of us should be. We've been following this team for the last half decade, and the playoffs, that's what matters. Regular season baseball and postseason baseball, we know there is a massive difference. I love postseason baseball. Regular season baseball, for me. And it's not to say Framber Valdez maybe has actually been able to work on himself with this mental coach, this doctor, over the course of the year. And maybe he has developed some great habits. But habits are things that you have to continuously work on. And it is easy to sometimes let those new habits that you have incorporated into your routine lapse, at least momentarily. Let's go to Richard up next, 713-780-3776. We're talking about Framber Valdez. Do you have faith in him? After last year's postseason, he did have a great 2022. Richard, what's up?
Hey, Paulie G. I used to hate Framber. I mean, not this season, the season before, never really had faith in him. I didn't feel like he had the steel to be even a number two, and I think we saw it in last year's postseason. But this year, there's something different about the guy. I've watched the regular season. I've watched him pitch, and he has learned, and it might be because of this coach that he has, this doctor he's working with. But during the regular season, you could see him when he had a lapse. And when the other team started to get to him, he would pitch angry. And what I mean is you could almost feel him reach down and throw the next pitch harder and like dare them to hit it in the strike zone. And I think that for me, and seeing that in the regular season, and then what you just said, which I hadn't heard up to this point, is why I'm excited to see who this guy is going to be tonight. Because I don't think this is going to be the Framber Valdez of last season.
Good thoughts there, Richard. And, to go back in time, I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't have faith in Framber. The Astros didn't have faith in Framber Valdez in 2019. They left him off the postseason roster. But reading these pieces that have been written about Framber over the last couple of days, Brian McTaggart's piece and the piece in The Athletic as well, it does feel like Dusty Baker has a lot of faith in him and saw something in Framber that he's like, you know what? We just got to figure out how we can get the consistency. And obviously, you see that curveball. The curveball's ridiculous. I think that there's only one pitcher in baseball that has more spin rate on his curveball. If you're one of those spin rate people, I'm not. But it's damn impressive.